You're watching Mallrats, a Star Wars podcast. Thank you for listening.
Hello, and welcome to our very first episode review, critique, discussion, debate, sharing, everything. This is, again, our first official. We did have an introductory podcast where you can kind of get our opinion and views and see what we think about what we thought about Mando and what we hope to see in this Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett show. I know one big thing we predicted clearly happened, and that was right off the bat. They wasted no time because everybody wanted to know, because he was dead. And a lot of my Star Wars fandom, is not even considered canon anymore. When Disney bought them, all of the novels and comics that have been going, for decades, were shelved as legends. So some of what I talk about might be more of just a fan as opposed to what's been shown so far. Just because I get additional enjoyment out of the Sarlacc, for example, or when we saw the Crate Dragon in the previous, the Marshall episode in season 2 of Mando, so that's where I come from. And so this is going to be a showcase where I get to talk, I get to learn what you think, and we just kind of go back and forth.
The most obscure information is the stuff from those books. Like, you're not going to be able to apply much of that.
The expanded universe books?
Yeah.
Like the Darth Bane books, and yeah, there's a whole, New Jedi Order and Rogue Squadron. Yeah, there's just countless books, over 100 books. But yeah, so this first episode is chapter 1 called Stranger in a Strange Land. It was 38 minutes long, written by Jon Favreau and directed by, do you remember?
Yes. Do you?
Oh, of course I know.
Robert Rodriguez.
Robert Rodriguez. See, I'm a fan of his from his Desperado and working with Quentin Tarantino, as the director. But for Star Wars, this isn't his first time, dealing with Boba Fett. He guest directed the time that Fett put his armor on in season 2 and had that big fight at Tython when Grogu gets kidnapped. That was the Robert Rodriguez directed episode, and he's famous for his fight sequences. And there was a video. Did you ever see the video of him in a backyard with his kids?
No.
He videotaped them and choreographed the Boba Fett fight from his Mando episode. Instead of storyboards, he shot a little thing and threw in some cheap special effects. The rocket going off and shooting, or the fights and the stuff coming out of the knees, things like that. So once they said that he was one of the directors that Favreau brought in, I was pretty excited. I liked what I saw with him. What do you think?
I haven't seen much of his work, but from the things that I have seen in both seasons of The Mandalorian, I think he's a very promising director.
Well, he is established already. I like what he's doing with Star Wars, and I think that I would definitely like to see more. I don't know. I think there are only 7 planned episodes or chapters this season, so I don't know if they're going to double dip or if they're just going to have a carousel like they've done before.
Yeah.
It's worked before, so why mess with it? In a way. But it was 38 minutes, and the title "Stranger in a Strange Land" stood out to me when I saw it on the screen and I looked it up. Did that bounce familiar at all to you?
Yeah, I had heard of a book a while ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
You know this book?
Yeah, did you?
I didn't know it was a book. For me, it was Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire."
Oh.
Stranger in a Strange Land, Dylan, Berlin, Bay of Pigs Invasion, and so I'm like, Stranger in a Strange Land. So I did some research, and I looked it up, and it was a Hugo Award-winning best sci-fi book from the 60s.
Yep.
And it was very famous for the counterculture, but it's about, and I'm taking this from Britannica.com, that the work centers on a human raised on Mars who comes to Earth and challenges customs relating to sex, death, religion, and money. Well, I think Boba Fett coming to Mos Espa and flipping the table on things, it's a perfect title. But it was lost on me other than, hey, that sounds familiar. And so I enjoy kind of learning more about things. And so the second or third time watching the show, you gain a little bit more. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think it's very fitting, and it really applies to the story. And he's out in this desert that he hasn't been before, working behind Jabba and his crew, becoming the new Jabba, I think, is very Stranger in a Strange Land.
Very. And hearing them call him Lord Fett, was kind of, oh yeah, very interesting. And we'll get to him more as the boss in a bit. So it begins. I think you were pretty excited for this show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've been waiting well, we waited a year.
a
And they
year.
said December of this year it was coming out, and they waited until the 29th to get it out, and they technically did. There's something interesting that you have a theory or philosophy when we watch new Star Wars shows, a practice. Can you share that with us?
I don't know what you mean by practice.
Well, when you sit down to watch a new one, you watch something else first.
Oh, yeah. Well, we go back and we watch the episode before it because, well, of another show, because typically it's important as we watched the last episode of The Mandalorian, and as you watch it again, you can pick out these new things that might help give you an idea of the plot of the new show.
With your understanding of something.
Yeah.
And also it's kind of a guilty pleasure. We're from a binge-worthy culture of the last few years with streaming.
Yeah.
It's hard to wait one and then you wait another week again, even though that's what they've been doing for, 80 years of TV or whatever. Um, or more, I guess. But it's one of those things that it's just a cool way to, instead of, well, we're just stuck with a 38-minute show for a week. It's like, you know what? Let's watch the previous. And so then you get an hour and a half if it's a special thing. And so it's like a mini movie. But anyways, that's a policy that you've shared, that you like to do, and I've adopted that, and I have friends who have adopted that, and so with this being the first one, we had to go back to the rescue, the very last episode where Boba helps cause a distraction to let everybody get on ship and save Grogu. And so we see Fett there, and then obviously in the famous closing credits, he walks in with and shoots Bib Fortuna, and we get to go right back. That's where this starts, and that's the thing. I didn't know where it was going to start or how. Did you have any idea it was going to start right then?
No, I assumed, like in our introductions episode, we had predictions, and I assumed that something was going to happen where he gets out of the Sarlacc pit, which is obvious, but I didn't think that there would be like a flashback section, or even I thought it would just show you and then it would skip to the actual show where he's all Don Fett and not back with the Tusken Raiders.
Right. Yeah, and it's fantastic. Now, the one thing we haven't seen is how he gets his gaffy stick yet. But, let me just say right off, this is a spoiler episode. When we
Wow.
do this,
Yeah,
I just want
it's
to
a
make
bit
sure
late.
people understand, and I think that they will, but we're going to go into detail with and so we're not going to hide anything or sugarcoat it. But so we haven't seen his gaffy stick, even though at the end he gets, you know, hey,
Accustomed
here's
to
some
it.
water, and he's a part of them now. So I don't know how often we're going to be going into flashbacks. To me, we've gotten the most important flashback so far, and that's the one that fans have wondered, especially from the expanded universe, that we've wondered for so long: is he really dead or not? Because even the
Yeah.
characters in the universe said that Fett was dead, and so he was able to go in the shadows for a while, that type of thing. And people didn't believe him; they thought he was a poser, things like that. Um, but the way it starts off, there's no other way to start it off iconically on Tatooine than show those twin suns, and zoom in then and pan over to Jabba's palace, which should we call it Fett's palace, Boba's palace?
Yeah, sure. Why
Boba's
not?
palace. So Boba's house. And then it zooms in and we can see him in a Bacta tank. And this is the first Bacta tank we've seen, since really Luke and Vader, right? Isn't that about the only people we've seen in those? Maybe some cartoons somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
yeah, but he's dreaming. And so we jump right back, I mean, instantly into a flashback where he's inside the Sarlacc. And instantly, for me, I'm like, this is cool. You know what I mean? It's just like he was in some sort of cave, a fleshy muscle. And could you just imagine coming awake and being in there?
I no, it's just dark and you hear the chirping of the Sarlacc pit, and it's just nothing.
Nothing. And he was knocked out. And we talked before we started rolling with this, that there's a stormtrooper down there. and you had something really interesting about that trooper that you said.
Um, I know it's something that a lot of people are talking about, but that there's a stormtrooper in there, despite stormtroopers not being on the sail barge with the other people and with Fett. So I'm wondering, since they're being digested for 1,000 years with a new definition of pain and suffering,
Hmm.
I think where at that point in the story did a stormtrooper just stumble in? Not even a sand trooper because it didn't have the orange marking on it.
Oh,
It just was a plain old white stormtrooper, which
you're right.
why is it there?
And his armor was pretty white and clean. All of the stormtroopers, the only storm because this was back in the New Hope time. This was an Empire. They had a presence there. It was Hut space, Hut controlled space, but the Empire still had a presence, right? They respect the Crime Lord, and so that's why when Obi-Wan is like, you don't need to see, go on your way, all of that, waving them the hands. Those are dirty troopers, and this one's all clean. Maybe the acid washed them clean or whatever.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen it being more first order type, older, not original trilogy type, to show that it had been down there a long time, because there was no proof of anything being down there 1,000 years. And the guy in the dead stormtrooper, most of the things that fall into the Sarlacc are alive. It's like a big Venus flytrap, and they die and are slowly digested over time. Okay, so if this guy was alive and now he's dead, how did he die? Did he run out of air?
No.
Well, no, because he still had some. Fett's air had gone out while he was passed out. So maybe the dude was dead ahead of time. But
Yeah.
anyways, he pulls out the air and gets that into him. One of the things that I want to talk about briefly, and this is me nerding out on stuff. Wikipedia, not Wiki. Wikipedia is a great resource, especially when I used to read books and they would talk about, different people or species that I didn't recognize. I'd look them up and find artist renderings. And the Sarlacc, what was really interesting, and if you don't care, fast forward a couple seconds, but a Sarlacc is like, these are massive, massive beings. These things, and again, this is all nerd alert stuff, but they're talking about on these websites and the books and the graphic illustrated books that they put out. These things can grow to be 100 meters long, and this one is vertical. So you see its mouth, the Pitter Carcoon, but this thing goes down 300 feet with different chambers and different stomachs. It didn't have arms and legs, but it had appendages off to the side like a tree with roots. And this blew me away, that the Sarlaccs are female, because they have male parasites that grab onto them and suck life out of them.
That is nerd alert.
Very, right? And then after 30,000 years, these males get big enough, and when they get to be as big as the female, they explode. And then they shoot their spores everywhere into the atmosphere, and they go, I don't know, galactic, interstellar, whatever. But that's how they, like spores and seeds on trees, that's how they move. So anyways, I found it real interesting because I kept thinking about the when Boba just put his arm and busted it through the stomach lining, and shot his way out and flamed it. He, once he escapes that little chamber, if he's on the outside, he's out of the Sarlacc. And then he's just he's buried. And that's where we see him crawling up through the sand.
Which I think that's kind of interesting because for such a mystical being that we don't really know that much about, it seems really easy to defeat it because all you got to do is just burn it, and then sand's going to pile in, probably suffocate it, and it's not going to be able to digest anymore. But it seems kind of a waste for this great plot line that was never finished of this 2-minute character that just falls into the pit, and we're all stuck wondering for many years what happened. It's just burn alive, crawl out. There's no that might be as simple as it is just to get out, but for such a legendary character,
Mm.
a bit too easy.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to have a OK Corral shootout. They
Well,
can't have a
yeah.
fist fight. It's this big. It's like the space slug in Empire. It's just probably not that big. But the crate dragon that we saw in the Marshall episode, the season 2 premiere. That big tunnel that he comes out of, well, under, but that was an abandoned Sarlacc tube. So it shows you how big and how you know just massive
Yeah.
that they can be. Um, but to see him escape, and I just loved to see in the dirt, and then it was almost like a rebirth. He's being birthed out. I had a flashback of Jim Carrey in the second Ace Ventura movie where he bursts himself out of a rhino, and he just kind of comes out, and he's exhausted and he's dead. I can't imagine well, not dead but exhausted. And then one of the things was, how did the Jawas get armor the armor from that previous
Yeah.
Mandalorian season? So a lot of the stuff, they hit you right away. Totally. The Jawas take the armor, the Tuskens come in and capture him. You had a comment to me, something interesting about the Tuskens that made me kind of go, you're right, in a way. Do you remember what that was when they first showed up, walking out of the light towards an unconscious Boba Fett?
I don't think I remember this.
You were like, something's wrong. They're walking wrong.
Oh, yeah. Because you know that they all walk single file, or at least ride single file, is what
Yeah.
Ben says. Well, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But it, they're walking side by side, so I wonder what's wrong with that. Are they letting their guard down, or
Yeah,
what's
or
happening?
they probably got off their steeds, the banthas, because we didn't see them, and so they're probably just walking. But I instantly thought, it made me think, what does Ben say? And you're right. He goes, they ride single file to hide their numbers. And so the next time we see them, they have him bound up and walking single file. So I think they've already dismounted, but it's one of those that for a split second we'll go, wait a minute, something seems strange. Something that I really liked was, I enjoyed the music, and I wondered how much I really enjoy Mando. All of that. And it's so iconic in certain scenes. And this is the same guy, Ludwig Göransson, right? He does the music. And so it's one of those that there were a lot of drums I enjoyed. And then still the brass came in. Did you have any feelings toward the music throughout?
I think it was really interesting and applies to the whole Stranger in a Strange Land stuff. It's all like weird, sounds a bit ancient, it's like a cave song or something. But I think it was like it really felt like The Mandalorian until you got those the singers in there, the really bass guys go like,
Mm,
huh! And it made it better,
yeah,
a like Boba Fett's own original
I
thing.
didn't want the same thing. You know what I mean? But we had 16 episodes of Mando, and we liked it so much it just seared in our brain that we truly wanted something completely original, and he did. That's why he's so good. And so yeah, so that's the beginning, and he gets captured by the Tuskens, and he's a prisoner. And so now it's Book of Boba Fett flash. I'm like, wow, they hit us right away with in the prologue, and great. Now we can move on instead of wondering, when is this going to happen? When are we going to find out? So I enjoy that storytelling, and that was our one prediction. Well, we gotta find out about the armor, and gotta, how did he get out of the Sarlacc? And it could have been a bit of a letdown. So um, I don't know if you ever saw this, but there was a really famous YouTube clip of Patton Oswalt, the comedian. He did a guest
Yeah,
spot
yeah, I
on
saw that.
Parks and Rec, where his character needed to present in front of all the main characters of Parks and Rec and filibuster in order to delay a vote against his cause in the show, some historical thing. And so they told him that you can do whatever you want. And so he had almost a 9-minute filibuster that he did, and you can find it on YouTube uncut. And it's funny because the main characters, no one interrupted him, but the main characters kind of got up and walked out in character like they were done with this, and he just kept going and going and was exhausted. But the most famous part is the beginning, because he says Disney just acquired Star Wars, so this is before Force Awakens, and he says, this is how Force Awakens, this is my pitch for how Star Wars should be done. And he says, starting with the twin sons of Tatooine, pans over to the Sarlacc at the Pit of Carcoon, and a gauntleted hand comes out into the dirt, and it's Boba Fett. And he kind of got it a little bit with this. It didn't show up in a movie. And he goes on to talk about how you can actually have Marvel and Star Wars in the same universe. And
Oh,
it's really entertaining, and it's all improv. You might have thought a little bit ahead of time, but it was just fantastic. And so the intro, I'm like, I need to go listen to that Patton Oswalt thing again because this sounds really familiar. Once the glove came up in this show out of the dirt, I kind of was like, okay,
that's
interesting.
familiar.
Very familiar. All right, so then we come back to the present. Book of Boba Fett, and they're waking him up and getting him out of his bacta tank, where it appears that's where he has his dreams. That's where he has his flashbacks, his PTSD, his nightmares, whatever. And we come to Mos Espa. What were your thoughts about that?
Um, it's an interesting set piece put in a big crater, but it's another Mos Eisley, just more modern, it seems, as like there's all these bars and things that are still crime owned because it's now Boba Fett's, but it's seems more expansive and more like built better, like
Yeah, it
better
did. It seemed more
construction,
high tech-ish. You know what I mean?
more modern.
More modern in a way, or just flashier. I mean, they got a nice budget to
Yeah.
pump that up, because the city is still there above the crater as well. But Mos Espa, the only time I remember this was from my daughter pointed out that the hey, where was Anakin's pod race at? And it was the Boonta Eve pod race in Phantom Menace, and it was Mos Espa. Because remember, we see Jabba the Hutt, come out to start the race. And so this is Anakin's town. We just never and Watto, who I want to see. I want us to see Watto, and if we're in Mos Espa, we can see Kitster, his friends, and the ones who want to play ball,
You're
in the
so set
street.
on the return of him.
I just want a little,
It's just so,
a
a
little
random
wave,
character.
a
Why
little
why
something.
a wave? They don't know Anakin.
Well, they knew Anakin. They don't know Darth Vader.
Well, they know Anakin, but they don't know Boba Fett. So why
No,
would it
but
show up?
everybody knows Boba Fett. Maybe they're going to come and pay tribute. He really, but to see everybody come and acknowledge him, and not everybody, and we'll talk about that, but then he goes to the bars or the places and people start giving him the tribute. This is how if you ever, well, you didn't, but the Sopranos, the mobs where they go to, a deli and say, give us a few $100s for protection. We want to make sure that you're taken care of, and that's kind of a tribute to
Code
the
for not
people.
beating them up.
Yeah, and it's illegal, obviously. It's shakedowns. But Mos Espa was, a really a beautiful locale that I enjoyed. Um, so he got up, he got dressed. Do you find that interesting at all? Boba getting dressed by other beings or other droids?
I don't know. It really goes to show the power that his position holds. Like,
Yes.
don't know if I mentioned it at some point, but like how Bacta is super expensive, and getting dressed by these robots is a high commodity, I think. So it just the power and money that this position holds is
Any other time we've seen people getting dressed like that, it's usually kings, right? Queens having their chambermaids or whatever help them get dressed. The Bacta was an interesting comment because I only know that from like the expanded universe stuff. There was a part of the smuggler. They would you would need it for the battles, and you could never really have enough. So that was really good. So they're paying tributes, and this is where it got fun for me, especially the second time I watched it and looked up some of the actors' names. I'm like, of course it's these people. And so this is where there were a lot of cameos. Where my first time through, I only picked up on one of them. But we have a Trandoshan show up, like Bosk, one of the bounty hunters. They call him Doc Strassi. And Boba talks about how, I used to work for him. This is kind of strange. All of a sudden, my old boss is coming to pay his respects. That would have been weird. But that was Robert Rodriguez as
really
the Trandoshan. And I had no
interesting.
idea. No idea. So it was the director of the episode that we were talking about. One of the ones that was really interesting was the Twi'lek, the Major Domo for the mayor.
Yeah,
Yeah, where was the mayor?
couldn't tell you. Busy.
Well, or not. He did not want to come. The major domo was there to get tribute.
Yeah.
And Boba's like, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be the one to pay. You are the one who is, that type of thing. And well, I found interesting, he's the only guy I recognized right off the bat. He's on the show Veep, and he played Julia Louis-Dreyfus's ex-husband, who was just a jerk, bad guy, cheated on her left and right, just a horrible guy, but always pretty funny. And he didn't change his voice at all for this. And so I got a little enjoyment out of watching him, kind of like, I can't, yeah, you can probably expect another visit from these people. And the mayor knows you're here, but the mayor's not coming. You're not important enough. So did the mayor bow down to Jabba at some point, do we think?
I
Or
I have a strong feeling in my gut there was another mayor during Jabba than there is now,
okay.
because I don't think that mayors of these cities are gonna like bow down to this crime lord, and it just seems, I don't know, like
Like
they
they
wouldn't do it.
like they wouldn't do it, and they have more power now, and we don't have to pay money, so we're going to be richer.
Yeah,
Maybe other people started jumping out for power once Jabba was gone, or once Bib was gone, before Boba could establish himself. I don't know how long Boba's been there. I don't know how much time has passed between Mandalorian's final episode. At some point, he had to meet up with Fennec, because she was on the bridge when Luke shows up for Grogu. Spoiler. Um,
it's not a spoiler. It's at least a
well,
year
it's a
old.
year old, so it's not a spoiler. But that guy's name was David Pascasi. So I liked him, and it's not everybody's happy about Boba being there. Not everybody assumes that Boba has the power to collect, and I'm interested to see what's going to play out. I'm thinking, remember on the trailer we see a long table, kind of not a round table, but a
Yeah,
bunch of people.
yeah.
I'm kind of guessing that might come to be of the different tributes in the heads of the families, whatever there are. Then the next one that I enjoyed more so once I figured out who the voice was, it dealt with the Gamorreans, the ones who were captured fleeing, and then there was a droid, a white droid. His name is 8D8, and I'm like, that droid looks familiar. And this droid was saying, you should torture them, you should
Oh,
punish
it was the
them.
torture droid
It was the
from.
torture droid,
Yeah.
and that's what he was like, no, you need to torture them. And if you go back to Return of the Jedi, when R2 is getting fitted with a restraining bolt and he's mouthing off down in like a workshop of droids, working on droids, torturing droids, in the back, you see this white,
Yeah,
tall
it's
8D8,
like hot pressing a gonk droid.
a gonk droid upside down, and he just sits there looking at it it's like a drill press right down, and you hear the gonk droid making squealing. So I found that as a cool. I doubt it's an Easter egg, but it was that connection I found was pretty cool.
I hope it's the same robot. It probably
I
is.
hope so. On the IMDb, they give him a designation of UK2B, but on subtitles they call him an 8D8. And I look, he has the same coloration,
Huh.
the same. So we're just gonna call him
Yeah.
8D8. But the voice of it, and you might not know this, it's a comedian actor named Matt Berry, who's really popular right now. He's a British guy, kind of a portly gent with a beard. He's on the TV show What We Do in the Shadows. He plays Laszlo.
Oh, right, that
Yeah,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, you probably
Yeah.
watched an episode too. But I knew him first from the IT crowd, and he was always really funny and just bombastic in that. But the droid from the Mandalorian seasons, Zero, the black droid during the prison heist episode,
Yep.
and then in the Frog Lady episode, they had to
Ugh.
use his vocoder translator
So she could
so she
talk.
could talk. But that one was by another IT crowd member, Richard IOUD. IOUD. It's an AYO. Anyways, yeah, great comedian. But that leaves Chris O'Dowd as the last actor, the tall Irish guy from Bridesmaid. He was in Thor 2 on the date with Natalie Portman that she seemed distracted with.
Yeah.
Funny guy. But that's my bet is he's going to show up as a voice or a character. If not this season, just eventually. Eventually. But that one I'm like, man, what a great get, just for a voice to come in and, make your mark.
Why do you think that guy's gonna show up?
Because two of the three from IT crowd showed up already.
I don't think there's really a connection there.
Yeah, so it's a coincidence.
Okay.
So
It's a coincidence.
that's why I'm predicting. I'm basing a future bet on A
Okay, we'll
coincidence.
see. We'll see.
Well, we will see. Yes. But then, okay, so then after the tributes, he decides to go walking and see his town, and he doesn't want to be carried around on a litter. He doesn't want to be propped up like some Joffrey
Pharaoh.
Baratheon from Game of Thrones, where everybody, they're going through the streets, or Caesar, you got to be carried. He goes, "No, I walk amongst the people. I'm not scared, right? You don't need anything." And then he goes to a bar.
Yeah, someone.
I thought
Well,
maybe it would be
it's
like,
like a casino sort of
see,
thing.
I thought it was a casino, and I went back and I tried to look. I couldn't find too much. They just seem to be
Yeah,
partying.
there was concept art in the
Oh, at
credits
the
that
credits?
and it showed they were playing Sabacc while they walked in and stuff.
The
So
place is called the Sanctuary, and we meet a very elegant proprietor, Garza Whip.
Fwip.
Whip. I think the F is kind of silent. I don't know. But Garza Whip, and that's by an actress, Jennifer Beals, who, if you have ever saw Flash Dance, she is
Nope.
the 18-year-old steel worker who has
Ugh,
to dance at night and then falls in love with the 40-something divorced guy. And
ugh.
kind of weird. Oh, and he was the boss. So that's weird. But she's in charge. And I think it might be more than just a bar. It might be kind of a
Seedy
brothel.
underbelly, I
A
think.
brothel, though, where she pays off people, and she was readily willing. She paid him off in his helmet before that he didn't ask for it, and here you go. Here's our
Just
tribute,
leave us alone.
right? Just we'll kind of keep doing our thing. But the reason I think that is she goes, "Will you be partaking in our sundry offerings?" She said, and so then it's like,
I just
hmm.
assumed she meant gambling, but just a weird way to say
And
it.
it could be about anything, I guess. Any of
Have
the
some food, have a drink,
any
whatever.
and that could be that, and I might be looking too much. But the thing with and we'll talk more about it later, Twi'leks, especially in the expanded universe, female Twi'leks, typically because they're elegant and graceful, they're either dancers or slaves. Okay, and that's off world. So their home world's Ryloth, where they have their own identity. But in the galaxy, and that's why when we see Ayla Secure as a Jedi, it's because a Jedi rescue, takes kids when they were young, and trains them. So she escaped. But almost every other female Jedi, almost, that can't escape their situation, they are employed or enslaved. Remember the first Twi'lek I saw was, remember Jabba's first slave dancer?
Yep,
Okay,
the
Ula,
Rancor.
and she was the one who tried to fight with the chain, and
Mm.
then first victim of the Rancor. So with this one, Garza, I got to keep saying names or else I'll never learn them. But Garza, seeing her in charge, that's a big step for females. Twi'lek females, and she seems to hold her own. Okay, at that particular point. Um, there were a couple others. Did you spot any other little cameos in the background of the sanctuary there?
I'm sure you did, but
I
I
did.
didn't.
No, Max Rebo shows up.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was
well,
really
yeah.
excited about Max. Max is for those that haven't seen pictures or can't visualize it, he is a blue elephant, a humanoid elephant, because he sits at a circular piano and he plucks at keys, just absent-mindedly almost, it looks like. And he has a band, the Max Rebo Band. And you see them play Jabba's Palace in Return of the Jedi, especially focused on the special edition. They get a little longer song. But I'm concerned, or curious, I guess, because he was on the sail barge. Bib Fortuna was on the sail barge. And I just don't know how they survived, because he is a portly little stout, probably doesn't run too fast, little elephant. And how do you escape that? Because I went back to find those scenes and I saw them in Return of the Jedi
You saw them inside.
on the barge.
Well, it exploded.
Nope, because the explosion is from the outside.
Didn't they have some sort of little tiny, like lifeboat go away before it exploded? Besides, like Luke's
Oh,
one,
well,
because
that
I think there's something
before it
going away in the
explodes,
back.
you see the skiffs move to the side, and
Yeah,
that's Han and
yeah,
Leia and Lando piloting.
but there might be another one.
There might.
I don't.
Well,
I don't
maybe
know.
that's the thing that'll save this, because once Luke grabs his lightsaber and they start fighting, it
Yeah,
goes crazy. Leia jumps around and strangles Jabba the Hutt. And on the barge, it's chaos. The lights are out, so maybe they ran away. Maybe there was
that's
time to
possible.
just jump. because that's how R2 and 3PO got saved. R2 pushed C3PO off into the sand.
Or
Or,
this is an entirely different universe
oh my
of Star
God,
Wars.
I can't handle that. I
Well,
already have to deal with expanded universe
it would
versus.
it would explain why all of a sudden Fennec is back with Boba. It would explain why he's having flashbacks when you never see him have them before.
Well, he kind of went through a lot though.
That's
Could that just be a
true.
storytelling trope to introduce people to the show who didn't
Yeah.
watch the prequels?
Yes, definitely.
Because they show Camino, waves crashing. They show him holding his dead father's helmet, which I always wondered if a head would fall out or what happened to the head.
Actually,
Oh, don't tell me you slow motioned it.
I did slow motion the original film.
When Mace knocks his head
Yeah,
off?
when Mace knocks his head off, you can see the helmet go flying. You can see like the shadow of it before it falls on the
Yeah.
ground. You can see this. You don't actually see the
Okay.
head, but you see a shadow go apart from it.
Okay.
And so there's no head, there's no gore
Yeah,
in
yeah,
all
yeah.
of Star
It's from a
Wars, so
distance.
just falls.
Interesting. I'll check it out because really, there's no blood.
No.
I think the only blood is when Obi-Wan takes the hand off Ponda Baba
Yeah, I
the
think
first time.
that's
With,
before they get through the
yeah, yeah,
logic of it.
yeah. Because they're like, cauterization, please. So, anyways, Max Rebo, that was like Max. But here's a deep cut. Major nerds. He was sitting next to a Biff, one of the big, fleshy skulled, big-eyed, small-mouthed musicians. We see them in the original cantina in where they meet Han and Chewie, the cantina, and it's Figrin, Don, and the model nodes. And does it sound familiar?
Yeah.
Now the problem
The
is,
Cantina Band.
I don't know. Did Max go and poach one of the nodes?
That's possible.
But again, the node, and this is just, maybe it's just a completely different Biff alien. I don't know. But the model nodes, the majority of them, if not all of them on camera, were all like a woodwind instrument. They looked very bassoon-like,
Yeah.
or a clarinet oboe type thing. I saw some life-size ones out at the Star Wars Rancho Obi-Wan out in Petaluma, California. Steve Sansweet actually has four of them that kind of dance and swing to the music, kind of like a little dancing California raisin or something. But these are life size. But anyways, that's just nerding out, wondering, is that one of the notes? Max did have a Biff, but it was a woodwind Biff in his original band at Jabba's palace. I didn't see him. I don't know.
There's probably some correlation
Deep
with
Easter egg. I'm looking for deep Easter eggs that
no,
that only I
not
enjoy.
likely.
Probably not. Probably not. Okay, so they leave and talk to us about the street fight, how that played out.
He jumps down or just walks. They're talking about how Fennec thinks that ruling with fear is actually better than ruling with respect, which I disagree. But then these 6 guys just come and jump them.
Was it 6?
It was 6.
And they surround them.
They surround him, sort of, because the Gamorrean guys that were following them are still outside.
We don't know them. They're not in this yet.
They fight in the fight, though.
Yeah, at the end, they gotta fight and get beat up for 30 seconds or whatever.
Oh, yeah. And Boba takes a hit, helmet falls, chaos ensues. But then after that, what's important is he's knocked down.
They kept getting shot over and over.
He got shot.
Why didn't they try to? This is maybe a wake up call, or they're sending a message.
A new thing. And then Fennec runs off to go chase these last 2 guys. But then right before she leaves, Boba tells her to keep them alive. Is this his message? Probably. Just we're merciful as long as you don't hurt us.
I look at it I could see that, and for an old Boba, no disintegrations as you wish. I think he would have done what he needed to do. But
yes, but
what happens if you kill both of them?
Yeah,
there's
no message back, or
not message back.
Information.
Who sent you?
Yeah,
that's why we need one, right? And you always see this in movies when there's 2 people getting interrogated or whatever, and one's not talking. They shoot the other. And go, okay, yep, I'll talk. We only need one alive.
Yeah.
And so for a moment, you see her register this, and I think we learned a lot about her. Because remember when we met her, when she was the target of Mando, okay? She was a big-time assassin wanted by the Empire, so she's very capable of killing. And so cold-blooded, kicking a guy, pushing him off a roof is nothing for her. But she listened to Boba.
Yeah, it strengthens their relationship that she can listen to him, which is something that I'm wondering how long will this I'm listening to him, but I'll
Mm.
also have my own ideas going to last because he lets her talk freely and thinks that his methods are not correct, but still listens to him. I'm just wondering at what point will it not be accepting his opinion but not listening to him?
She's not just an advisor, or excuse me, not just muscle. She's an advisor too. She's a right-hand man, right? She's his Secretary of War and Chief of Staff, in a
Yeah,
way. Um, that's interesting. I think that you got to think about how did they meet?
saved her.
He saved her. She was shot, dying, and he saved her. And so she's been traveling with him. I feel like and this is an old one. This is from the books, but this is why Chewie hangs around with Han. It's a life debt. His life. My life's in debt, so it's yours now.
Did they go through that in the books? Because I just know
Very
that from
much so.
Solo.
Very much so in the books.
Okay.
Very much so in the books. And in the books, he saved him from slavery,
Yeah.
etc. But to the point where, well, I'm not going to get into it because we can go on and on about the expanded universe stories, which don't matter anymore. But okay, I'll talk. No, I won't. Maybe we can go into do separate podcasts if we ever read the
Oof.
same books, things like that.
Expanded universe.
What I found interesting. So, is it safe to say that the mayor sent these? That this is the delegates that the major domo said? You can probably expect a
Yeah,
future party.
that's what I was. Well, not exactly what I was thinking, but after seeing keeping one alive, and at the end of the episode, they bring him back to Casa Fett. You, I just thought like, who sent these guys? Because we don't really know. And
We
then
don't, but
you go back through the episode, and you're like,
should we figure it out that
hmm,
that guy was pretty much threatening, like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna get some more visitors.
yeah, bushwhacked.
Yeah. And Fett got shocked a lot, and he instantly was weak and needed to be put in Bacta. Has he not recovered yet? How much time is between him and this? Maybe there will be more flashbacks. How much time that he was accepted with the Tuscans
I
to
wouldn't say
now?
accepted.
Accepted, they handed him water at the end. How
That
much time is between that? Because he still needs, based on those flashbacks, he still has to track down Mando and do the whole adventures that we just saw on the last Disney Plus show. Then after that, how much time before he walks up and shoots Bib? So he's having flashbacks to a lot of stuff, a lot of PTSD stuff. Why is he so weak? He wasn't weak when we saw him fight on Mando, and
yeah,
all that stuff. So
he wasn't really getting hit that much though on Mando.
I don't know
Because I
that
mean, they're stormtroopers.
one Robert Rodriguez episode where he gets in his armor. It was just glorious. You're right. He wasn't getting beaten straight onto his skin. A lot
Yeah,
of times it's deflected. I found it interesting how coordinated they were. It was very historically, militarily constructed base that we've seen, whether it was the shields with the spears in like Sparta, or 300. In Game of Thrones, they had a big battle of the bastards where at Winterfell, they surrounded all of the heroes and they were all getting killed and they just started to suffocate them and enclose them more. And they would go slow and then stab, stab, as they did in this show. And until Littlefinger shows up and, it's like in Two Towers when Gandalf looked to the sun and they come in and they wipe them out from the outside. So we see the same type of things play out. And so the Gamorreans you talked about a little while ago, he gave them, whether it was saving them from torture or saving their lives, they instantly paid that off. I don't know. I just found those moments. Maybe that will show us this mayor. Maybe he's kind of a military-minded person. Does he hire only mercenaries? The type of people that like Mayfeld, those type of individuals. I know I got excited.
crossover.
Crossover, could show up. I don't know. But one can only dream.
Yeah.
So he goes back and we pretty much finish up the story in flashback at this particular point. So we're done with the present and I'm really interested to see where that present goes next week's episode. But what happens when he goes back into his flashback?
Uh, the Tuscan kid forces him out with the sneaky little Rhodian.
Yeah.
and they go.
Well, he tried to escape at one
Yeah,
point.
and
He
he's all
didn't
like,
get far, but he
yeah,
did
yeah,
escape and
got
he
yelled
got
at.
whooped. So he's kind of being he's a prisoner.
Yeah,
He's a prisoner. So the kid takes him.
kid takes him. They go dig for these like water fruit thingies. And then
Yeah. What was
big,
that?
big six-armed scary
Oh, hold on,
monster
hold on.
guy
What,
comes
hold
out.
on. What were those water things though?
Fruits of the floor, like
They're like
cactus.
coconuts, but yeah, I just don't know. Did they plant them? Did they just start digging and hey, we found water pods?
I think they know where the good spots to dig them are. I don't think you're. I think it's some sort of kind of cactus, but without the spikes on it, since cacti hold a lot of water inside,
Yeah,
and it doesn't need that much water.
because that water could have been very helpful for a lot of people probably if they knew about it. But the
Yeah.
Tuscans have to know how to live and survive off the land. It's a hard life, right? Um, Before we get into the battle, we see smoke in the sky, and instantly they start heading towards it. Right? Do you remember this?
No, I don't.
They come across a homestead that's on fire.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
being vandalized and beaten and taken over by a gang because they are tagging with graffiti the house.
Yeah.
But it looks straight up like the Lars homestead. It's a moisture farm. They broke one of the evaporators and it's spewing water, which I'm not even thirsty and going through, but I'm just like, oh my God, you saw what Boba would do just for a little bit of water. And you see, it's just crazy. So I'm pretty sure this gang activity is going to play back
Yeah.
into Boba at some particular point in
'Cause
this
I don't
particular
think
time.
they'd put it in and a whole new like gang sign with it and not show us what it is.
Right. But we didn't know it was a gang until the tagging.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was doing the math,
These guys
and
are
I'm
just
like, wait, is
sacking the
this the
place.
homestead? Did he witness the Empire? And I'm like, no, that would be not
Wrong time.
chronological, wrong time. But I found that interesting. And so they're digging, and the Rhodian finds, he uncovers
Looks
some
like a claw.
a skin and a claw, and up comes this huge
Thing.
what?
Do you know what it is?
I don't know what it is. Um,
Desert animal.
here it is with the zoology component of our podcast, the Tatooine animal experts that we are. It was always dewbacks and banthas.
And that's it.
Crate dragons, we never saw, but it was the bones.
Just the bones.
Okay. Then in the special editions, they would have, speeding through the town of Mos Eisley, there was like a big brontosaurus type thing, which I don't even know what that was.
What was that?
But this thing straight up looked like some old, to me, and I don't know if this will make sense to you, but an old Clash of the Titans miniature that was kind of like stop motion. When it was walking, it seemed very much like I don't know if a Gorgon or the Medusa, just something very stilted, kind of like how the Rancor kind of moved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it also looked like that bad guy in Mortal Kombat that has the two sets of arms and the big top knot. You know what I mean? I can't think of his name. But it was a combination of all of that and some sort of demon lizard.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
like, it seems kind of like a bantha, how it, not,
A bantha.
well, these are completely opposite planets, but I don't know. When I saw it, it looked like, I don't know, how it moved, and it just seemed, I don't know, big, bulking, and walking
And
around.
lumbering around. It's
Yeah,
not fast.
no.
It's something. But this one, so does it lie in wait? Is it like a dragon that just waits, or like a sarlacc? You wait for your prey to show up and come around, and then you grab it. Because with the sarlacc, they got the long tentacles. The beak that comes out, that was a special edition ad. And one of these websites, they say that's actually just the tongue coming out. I'm like,
That wasn't a tongue.
I'm like, whatever. But they think that's a sarlacc. The sarlacc is everything.
Everything.
You know what I mean? And so some people thought it was just that little pit. And that's why with the illustrations, it's 100 meters below. But so they fight this thing, and the kid's going to die. What happens?
Uh, it's chasing after the kid, and it's about to, like, devour it, and then Boa jumps on its back, starts strangling it with chains, which he was connected to the Rhodian, but the Rhodian got like eaten.
I
I
gotta
think
watch that part again because
something.
at some point the chain had some slack into it,
Yeah.
and he Leia'd him
Yeah.
in a way that Leia took out who Jabba.
Java.
And
Yeah.
so he did that to this particular thing. And that was really interesting. And this is how he becomes part of the crew.
Yeah. Go back without the Rhodian, thankfully, and the kid is all talking about how he defeated this big monster, but the chief is having none of it, and he knows that it was actually Boba, but
Yeah,
he's
I
keeping
wonder.
his mouth shut, which I think giving him the water is a sign of respect, which I think this is how Boba first gets his idea of leading with respect, because
Oh,
the chief could have as easily just like said it was Boba and shut down the little kid, but he defends him, but without telling
without
everybody about it. He's not
he
making a
doesn't
big
need.
deal
He's
of
not
it.
prideful. He
Yeah.
doesn't need. That's interesting. Because I thought the kid was like, "Look what I did! Look what I did!" At one point, I thought I saw him point over at Boba.
No.
Okay, he did.
He was
So
taking credit for it.
even if they go both ways with it, the guy knows that Boba and the warrior that he clearly is, the
Hmm.
fighter, he helped out. He didn't kill the kid, take advantage of the kid in this battle, and so I think game respects game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Going
And they
back as a
respect it.
prisoner when he could have easily just run away.
Yeah, yeah, that's intriguing. And the Tuscans are really interesting, man. And I keep going back to that Marshall episode where Timothy Oliphant is dressed up, Cobb Vanth, he's dressed up as
Yeah.
Boba and Mando. Um, we see more Tuscan airtime in that episode than any others.
Oh yeah.
And you find them harvesting at the end. All they wanted was the corpse, the body, so they can get the food, the, I don't know, skin,
And
whatever.
the
But
pearl
you see
thing.
at the Pearl. And this was a big Easter egg for the people who, read the comics or read the books, because that was a rite of passage for young Tuscans. They had to get the pearl from a crate dragon. You know what I mean? And so when they showed that, they weren't necessarily saying that and canonizing that aspect, but they canonized a pearl comes from
Yeah.
that. And so I dug that. And that's where I'm slowly hoping all the stuff, the just pick the great stuff, because there's so much great stuff in
Just
the expanded
bring the
universe.
things back.
And with Disney Plus, you can do that. I'm still holding out hope that Solo, which I enjoy that movie. I thought each of the characters did okay, and I would love to see where they go with it. How great would an 8-part Disney show on Solo be? And we talked about a Lando and Solo mashup. It could be like a
Special edition.
special. It could be a what do we call it? Like an Ocean's
A
heist
heist
movie,
movie, yeah.
but make that 7, 8 episodes. That could be a lot of fun. And we're getting to the point with the quality of the Star Wars shows. I'd almost rather have 8 to 10
Yeah.
episodes, 8, the most we've had, instead of a 2-hour movie.
They're pumping out these shows like with new ideas. Like we have Andor coming, Kenobi also, and it's just they seem to have good ideas about what they should be making, and they do make it really well. Every show they've made since The Mandalorian has been excellent. Just a 8-part, 6-part series is more time and more weeks invested into this story that you just sit down in the movie theater for 2 hours and watch. It's
And wait
different.
3 years for the next one, or
Yeah,
two
just
if they're rushing it.
a season a year or two
Yeah,
years, whatever. It's still
gosh, we're
faster
getting
than
spoiled.
movies.
You have no idea what it was like to not have Star Wars. You know what I mean? It was dead after 83.
How long was the wait between the first and the second? 4 and 5.
They were all 3 years, 77,
Ah,
80, 83. And they were done. And that's why they had the cartoons, the Ewok cartoons, and the C3PO, the
oof.
droids is what it was called. That lasted just a couple, and it was dead. I'm guessing 95, 6, it was dead. Nothing. Some tried to do some comics, but it wasn't until what's it, Timothy Zahn. He did the Thrawn trilogy, and he took all of these great characters, created some fun other characters, good guys, bad guys, and Grand Admiral Thrawn. And all of a sudden, things started blowing up, and there's Dark Horse started to do their comics, and the art was great. And then the news came in the mid '90s that hey, George has another prequel. He wants to do another trilogy. So this is like '95 is when he starts writing. One of the documentaries on it shows him sitting at his desk, puts the date on a yellow piece of paper, and writes like Phantom Menace and starts writing like the crawl, of the beginning sequence. And so then they have until 99 to come out with the movie. So in that 4 year span, they start re-releasing the movies in the theater. They start putting them out on VHS as special editions to build up hype. So that's the first time
Changing the Sarlacc.
in my life, because I was like, I don't know, 6, 5 when Return of the Jedi came out. So my childhood was all looking in the past. And now I was starting to get to experience the present, but also coming up on the future. And so now you aren't just relying on, you know, a movie trilogy every 15
Yeah,
years. You're able to get it. You want it yearly, which I do too.
that's why I'm a bit jealous of the older generations, because like everybody got the excellent prequels, which I know people will disagree with me on,
Oh, I
but
enjoyed them.
and the original trilogy, and but I got the new ones, the slightly terrible Disney ones, which they were
Yeah.
okay. They brought back characters like Luke and Kylo Ren, cool
Yeah.
villains, but
There's some great moments in those movies.
overall, the movies as a whole were not prequels. They weren't like the side stories, which is why these new shows are so good.
So good, huh?
Outstanding.
I I've enjoyed, so overall, I think Disney's done a nice job with the Star Wars brand. So people might say no with the movies, but then you wouldn't get these TV shows. You know what I mean? You wouldn't get the Disneyland, not Disneyland, but the Star Wars Batu that's you can go to and visit at the parks. So I like the direction they're heading, and I'm really curious to see where it goes. So, um, any last parting thoughts? We got through an episode. We talked probably longer than the episode was.
I think we should go over predictions for later episodes. I think we sort of did
We
that,
kind of
but
did that, but how would they change? Okay, so you have some predictions. Go ahead. What do you think?
not really specific episodes, but I think like how in the trailer they showed the big table. It was
Yeah,
like speak freely, but I think it's gonna stay in these two timelines of him in the back to tank, him as the new crime leader, because I think establishing why he is how he is now through with the Tuscans, I think is interesting and a cool dynamic we haven't really seen.
we really learn a lot
Yeah,
because when we see him in, gosh, I should drinking game every time I say the Marshal. The Marshal, the first time we see him from back, without his armor, with a gaffy stick, and he's just roaming, so he's fine. And since we saw him get accepted, we know he's not going to have to kill a tribe of them to get away. They'll allow him at some point, I think. Um, but uh, I hope it isn't. I don't want to say I hope because I don't know what to expect
you want
just
to,
from the present storyline.
yeah,
But the past storyline, for fans of Boba Fett, put it this way, for fans who have loved him since the first time they saw him on Empire, or if they like the cartoon, in the Christmas, special that aired one time, or on YouTube if you want to watch it, we wanted to know what happened because he seemed so cool, and then he got hit in the back of his jetpack and then crashed into a
yeah,
ship screaming and died. And it was always kind of a bummer. For me, it's Darth Maul, how he dies so soon. He's my favorite character. That's what brought me into Star Wars was all of the re-releases I got to see when I was in high school, and that was great. First time Star Wars in the theater, but that colored visage of him was just so demonic and double-bladed red favorite color. It was just awesome. And so I really got sucked into Star Wars because of Darth Maul. But no, he got cut short so quickly,
yeah,
and as did Boba in Jedi. That yeah, I do want to see more of him, develop him, but we're seeing him as an older guy.
yeah,
That character is established, so now we're learning a lot. He's about respect. We're seeing what drives him. He's not some bloodthirsty killer. He has a code, which from books, yes, he has that. He's a very regal type person in the books. Some of the books, as he tries to, claim Mandalore, but that's neither here nor there. Um, Predictions. Um, I don't know where we don't know names well enough. Some bad guy, good guy. I think I even forgot her name. Flashdance. Jennifer Garza Whip. I think that's going to play. I think she's going to have a bigger role than just showing up one time. I hope
Here's your
so.
money. Go away.
I hope she's in it more. She's in a, she's pretty good. But I really would like to see, there has to be some adversary for him.
Yeah.
And so what is it? Well, a mayor who didn't want to come pay tribute. They could, so far,
Do
that's not
something
that
better.
exciting. But if he shows up at the other end of that long table, and he's being standoffish, like, hey, I'm the Godfather, not you.
Yeah.
I don't, whatever. That could cause some problems. And I'm like, okay, so this is turning out to be a Godfather type mob war movie. Maybe that's okay. I don't know. But the problem is they have 7 episodes that I don't know how much more time they can go in the past when the main questions got answered.
Yeah.
Armor and Sarlacc.
I'm just predicting in the next, probably this episode or
I could see it
2
again.
from now, they're going to, I respect you. We're going to let you go. Here's your gaffy stick to help you. And then move along, which this is how we can really figure out how long it's been since the Sarlacc. When did that really happen? Like year-ish between movies. Compare that to when Mandalorian happened.
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I can't imagine. I bet Jabba's sail barge blew up. I'd say within that day he
like an
wakes
hour
up.
or two.
Let's say he got knocked unconscious.
Yeah, he can still get out near then, but I'm just wondering.
The Death Star hasn't blown up yet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And so if he were quick, he could get to Mos Eisley. Oh wait, no, that was a whole different. So Luke would have been going off to Dagobah for Yoda to die, right? Because I think that's where he took off because he said he'd be back. Yeah, how much time? I think we'll see that, and I do want some more character development, but I'm really interested on him and Fennec and what they're gonna do, which I think a lot of people are interested. The IT guy, Chris O'Dowd, he'll show up at some point. That's a prediction.
We got to write that down.
Oh, it's now for eternity here. It's going to be online. I don't know. They got 2 of the 3. Why not get the 3rd?
Wasn't there some lady in that show?
Yes, and I apologize. I don't know her name. I just found the 3 guys.
I didn't even know there were 3
really
guys.
Hilarious.
It was just the 2.
Well, it's the 2 guys.
Nerds.
This Matt Berry was their boss.
Oh, okay.
Very boisterous and incompetent and loud.
Yeah.
And funny. And from what I've seen of What We Do in the Shadows, he's really funny as well as a vampire. So, okay. So I'm good. Are we good?
I'm good.
Okay. So as we do this more, it will become more streamlined.
Yeah.
It probably won't be as long, but if you made it through this, or thank you. This is just for us. We're just doing this for fun, but if you enjoy it, let us know. We do have an email that if you wish to ask questions at the end, we will answer them to the best of our ability, and that email is
mallratspod@gmail.com. It'll be in the description of the show also.
And that's Maul, M-A-U-L, rats, one word, right? Yes. Mall rats, just like the title. I don't think we said the title at the beginning when we started.
I think you did.
Did I? I don't know. We can scroll and find out later. But anyways, well, thank you very much for listening. I am Bob.
I'm Nolan.
And we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy Boba Fett at your leisure, and we will talk to you soon.
See ya.